A dead fish in your bed could get you closer to the papal throne than 10 years of prayer ever could. That's not a joke. It's one of the least bizarre ways men clawed their way to the top of the Catholic Church. Forget saints and sermons. The true story of how to become pope is darker and weirder than you've ever heard. And if you think it's just about faith, you're already missing the first rule. Here's the uncomfortable truth. To become pope, you needed power, money, blood ties, and sometimes a willingness to play dirtier than a Roman sewer. And the wildest part, the popes who made history weren't always the holiest. They were the best at surviving the world's most dangerous game. So, what does it really take to seize the throne of St. Peter? The answer is more medieval mafia than modern miracle. Let's start with the most basic rule, one most people never realize. You can't just be chosen. You have to survive being chosen. Picture this. Rome, 896 AD. A new pope takes the throne. Months later, he's dug up, dressed in papal robes, and put on trial as a corpse. That's the infamous Cadaver Synod. Lesson 1. Your enemies don't stop plotting just because you've stopped breathing. So if you want to be pope, you need allies, loyal ones. But here's what most history books skip. Loyalty usually came with a price. The medieval church ran on bribes so open, they had their own word, simony. Want a bishop's vote? Slide a pouch of florins across the table. And if you ran out of gold, blackmail was the next best thing. Secret sins, hidden affairs, forged letters, everything was currency. But here's where it gets twisted. The more ambitious you were, the riskier the game. The Vatican was a shark tank, and every cardinal had teeth. Want proof? Take the Borgia family. Rodrigo Borgia bought, seduced, and poisoned his way to becoming Pope Alexander VI. He didn't just bribe the College of Cardinals, he handed out entire palaces. If you couldn't be bought, you might end up dead. But even the Borgias had a weakness: family. Nepotism wasn't just common, it was practically a requirement. If you wanted to be pope, you'd better have powerful cousins, preferably in the same room, wearing red hats. This is no exaggeration. Between 1400 and 1700, nearly every pope was related to at least one other cardinal. But there's a catch. Family power could backfire. Rival clans could turn Rome into a war zone. In 1494, the Colonna and Orsini families turned a papal election into open combat. Picture the world's holiest turf war. The winner got the throne. The losers sometimes got exiled, or worse, their heads on pikes. Now let's talk about the conclave, the infamous papal election. Most people think it's all solemn prayer and white smoke. Here's what really happened. Cardinals locked in a room without food, water, or bathroom breaks until they picked a pope or someone died. In 1268, the conclave lasted nearly 3 years. Cardinals started dying from heat and hunger. The locals literally tore the roof off to force a decision. So if you were a candidate, you needed stamina and a bladder of iron. But even if you survived, that was just round one. Next came the oaths and the secrets. Every pope swore to defend church doctrine. But the real promises were whispered in back rooms, traded for votes. Some even promised to resign if elected, just to break voting deadlocks. Yes, resign, the world's holiest office as a bargaining chip. But promises could be lethal. If you broke your word, rivals had no mercy. Assassination wasn't rare, it was just inconvenient. Urban VI was attacked with hammers by his own cardinals. John XII died, rumor says, during an affair, or maybe at the hands of a jealous husband. So, what kept anyone sane? Paranoia, mostly. And an ingenious system of symbols and spies. Candidates used secret handshakes, coded rings, and even invisible ink. Every ally might be a traitor in disguise. And if you still weren't sure, you could always trust in poison, a favorite tool of the truly ambitious. But here's the deeper irony. The church needed these ruthless survivors. Without them, the papacy might not have lasted. When Rome was sacked or invaded, only the most cunning popes held the city together. Not the kindest, the toughest. But toughness had a cost. The more ruthless the path, the more legends and scandals piled up. There's a reason the Vatican kept the archives locked tight for centuries. Some truths weren't meant for daylight. Now, fast forward. Modern popes aren't dodging daggers. But the behind-the-scenes game, it's alive and well. Political blocs, whispered alliances, and yes, rumors of secret deals still shape every conclave. The difference is, today's weapons are words and votes, not poison. But the stakes, just as high. So what's the real lesson? Becoming pope was never about pure faith. It was survival by any means necessary. And if you made it, you didn't just lead a church. You inherited centuries of enemies, secrets, and a throne built on bones. So next time you see white smoke, remember, the world's most holy job may just be its most dangerous. But that brings us back to our opening mystery. Why would anyone risk it all for the papal throne? The answer is simple, and yet like every true Vatican secret, it's never just one thing. For some, it was faith. For others, power. For most, the irresistible pull of immortality, the hope that their name would outlast even their sins. But here's the final twist. Even the most infamous pope is just a chapter in a long, unfinished story. And the next chapter? Well, that's written every time a new candidate steps into the conclave, and every time you look behind the white smoke. If you want to know what happens when the world's most powerful church faces a crisis even poison can't fix, you'll want to see our next story on the Pope who vanished without a trace. But if you think the papal game is all ancient history, you're in for a surprise. The 1978 Year of Three Popes proved the drama never really left the Sistine Chapel. John Paul I reigned just 33 days before dying suddenly, too suddenly for some. Conspiracy theories still whirl. Was it a heart attack or something far more sinister? Some whispered of secret Vatican bank deals, others of poisoned tea. The Vatican's own autopsy was less than thorough, but the church closed ranks. Secrets survived. The rules hadn't changed, just the methods. Even the white smoke can't hide everything. And there's one more twist. Sometimes the papal game isn't just about who wins, but who disappears. Take the case of Pope Benedict IX, the only man to sell the papal throne. Twice. He became pope at about age 20, partied harder than a Medici, and when bored, sold his title to his godfather. The Vatican's official records? Let's just say they prefer not to talk about him. Centuries later, his story still haunts every conclave, reminding new candidates that the price of power isn't just gold, but what you leave behind. But here's a curiosity. How do you even start the climb to the throne? For most, it started with connections, family, yes, but also favors owed and secrets kept. The right mentor could make or break your future. And sometimes a single well-timed confession could buy a lifetime of loyalty or silence. There were the Kingmakers, men who'd never wear the tiara, but who pulled the strings from the shadows. Their names rarely made it into the history books, but their fingerprints are everywhere. If you crossed them, your career ended before it began. And for every ambitious cardinal, there were 10 more ready to report your every mistake. But sometimes, the biggest danger came from beyond the Vatican walls. Kings and emperors often tried to rig the papal vote. In 1903, the Austrian emperor famously vetoed a frontrunner, ending centuries of outside interference, officially. But unofficially, influence never left. The game just got subtler. Even today, intelligence agencies keep tabs on the Vatican, just in case. Because the man who controls the Vatican can sway a billion souls, and sometimes turn the course of history. So, the next time you wonder how a man becomes pope, remember, it's not just faith or luck or destiny. It's about who can outwit, outlast, and outplay every holy rival. And who can survive the secrets that come with the crown. Because in the end, the papal throne isn't just a seat of power, it's the world's oldest, strangest, and most dangerous Game of Thrones. And it's a game that never really ends. If you're wondering who will play next, all you have to do is watch the smoke. Because every time it rises, another chapter begins, and another contender steps into history's oldest arena. And sometimes the most dangerous rival is the one smiling beside you in prayer. After all, even in the holiest halls, ambition wears many masks. And the only thing more powerful than faith is the secret no one dares to confess.